Wouldn't it be great if you could ask your data anything at any time? Like, how are sales this quarter? How's the new marketing campaign performing? What does the overall health of the company look like? And actually get answers right away with charts and graphics and actionable information. You can with Domo's AI and data products platform. Domo lets you channel AI and data quickly, securely, and innovatively to deliver measurable insights wherever and whenever you need them. Anyone on your team can use Domo to easily prepare, analyze, visualize, automate, and distribute data, all amplified by AI. Domo goes beyond productivity. It's designed to transform your processes, helping you make smarter and faster decisions and drive real growth. All powered by Domo's trust, flexibility, and years of expertise in data and AI innovation. The world's best companies rely on Domo to make smarter decisions. See how Domo can help transform yours. Learn more at ai.domo.com. That's ai.domo.com.
The Agile Brand.
Welcome to Season 6 of the Agile Brand, where we discuss marketing technology and customer experience trends, insights, and ideas with enterprise and technology platform leaders. We focus on the people, processes, data, and platforms that make brands successful, scalable, customer-focused, and sustainable. This is what makes an Agile brand. I'm your host, Greg Kihlstrom, advising Fortune 1000 brands on MarTech, marketing operations, and CX, best-selling author and speaker. The Agile Brand podcast is brought to you by TechSystems, an industry leader in full-stack technology services, talent services, and real-world application. For more information, go to teksystems.com. Before we get started, I wanted to let you know that my latest book, Priority is Action: 7 Principles for Better Strategies, Decisions, and Outcomes, is now available. In it, I give ideas and insights for leaders and teams that need to make meaningful progress on their priorities. After all, our priorities are what we do, not what we say we'd like to do. You can find Priority is Action on Amazon or learn more on my website, gregkihlstrom.com. Now let's get on to the show. In an increasingly data-driven world, modern brands have been forced to adapt to keep pace with the changes in the market, including one of the most significant areas of focus, which is customer data management. There's several reasons for this, from customers' expectations of more personalized experiences to the impending deprecation of third-party cookies and the increasing emphasis on consumer data privacy. Today, we're going to talk about what it really means to understand your customers, better using your data, and what to do as you build out your first-party data strategy. To help me discuss this topic, I'd like to welcome Heidi Bullock, CMO at Tealium. Heidi, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Greg. It's great to be here.
Yeah, looking forward to talking about this with you. And why don't we get started with you giving a little background on yourself as well as your role at Tealium?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I've been at Tealium as the CMO for just over 4 years. So, we always hear the stats about CMOs making it only a year at companies. So I guess for myself, I feel very happy and proud about that.
Yeah.
I oversee global marketing for Tealium. So that really is interesting for your guests here today, just because, again, as something that we're talking about is customer data. And it's very different in different countries. So we can absolutely come back to that. But yeah, I mean, I really think a lot about the brand, product marketing, making sure we're hitting, all our pipeline and bookings goals. So yeah, it's been a great role for me. And I think it's been in particular very exciting because prior to that, I spent a lot of time in the MarTech space. And I think everyone has talked about for so long, right message, right time, doing all the personal one-to-one marketing. And, today we'll cover this more in your show, but it's becoming a reality. And, when you've been in this space for a long time and you're finally seeing that come to fruition, it's very exciting.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's it does feel like things are finally aligning after after talking, writing, trying to do it for years and years and years. It's like when it was the year of mobile for like 5 or 6 years in a row, and then finally the iPhone came out, and then it actually was. So yeah, no, I totally agree. Well, so yeah, let's dive in here. We're going to talk about a few aspects of customer data today, but let's start with defining a first-party data strategy and what that really means. So how do you define a first-party data strategy?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think I'll just start with what first party data is because I don't know that it's a term that everyone knows well. I mean, I'd even say over the past few years, even in marketing, I'm surprised at how many people, don't necessarily know what it is. But just to start there, I mean, it's data that your organization has collected directly from your buyer, which I think is really, really important. And it's kind of obvious why it's better than, say, third party data, which again, that's going to be data that typically, 9 times out of 10, you're buying that data. It's going to be less accurate, incomplete. And what I like about first party data, because somebody's providing it to you directly, again, it's going to be more timely, current, all those things. But number one, it's consented, which is something, again, we'll probably touch on more. And so that's first party data. And then I think having a first party data strategy to me is being really thoughtful about how you collect, handle data, and how you use it. And I think a lot of companies, probably several years ago have really, I mean, I think Tealium's been talking about this for quite a long time, but it is really thinking about not just depending on third party data and data that you're purchasing, but how do you think about data, your customer data as a real asset for your business. In my view, it's probably one of the most valuable assets your company has. And so you want to have a team that steps back and thinks about, how are we collecting this from, all the different sources that our buyers engage with us, whether that's, point of sale data, web data, mobile data, all the places. How are we bringing that together and ensuring that it's, compliant, used well within the company? It's something we can talk about more, but it's not just marketing that uses this data. Your product
Right.
team probably wants to look at this data. Your success team needs to look at this data. So it's just being thoughtful and proactive about all those pieces.
Yeah, yeah, and so this totally makes sense that it should be important for organizations, and given that definition of it, seems like it should have always been important to brands, and I'm sure in some ways it always was. But why is it so important now? What's the focus right now? What are kind of some of the external and even internal factors that are making this focus on first party data so important?
Yeah, and Greg, you already kind of touched on these earlier, but I mean, I think the first thing that we've seen are the web browser changes with third-party cookies and data being phased out due to changes in regulation and
Yeah.
and changes with different tech companies that we will not name right now, but I think everybody knows who they are. And some of that, I think the can's getting kicked down the road a little bit, but I think everyone can see it's going to be inevitable. That change is coming. So I think for a long time, everyone's been saying, don't depend on that, not only for knowing your buyer, but for all your analytics and attribution. I mean, that's really important. And two, and I touched on this earlier with my role as data privacy changes. For everyone
Yeah.
listening that has marketed to Canada and Germany for a long time, we know this, right? It's that the way customer data is treated and handled is very sensitive, and people there's a lot of laws and regulations around it. And I think now we're seeing that across the board. I mean, with GDPR and CCPA, the way we all use data, it's so different. I mean, I remember early in my career, like, yes, people bought lists. You would
Yeah.
you would share lists at trade shows. I remember doing it, and no one thought twice about it. And now that's just, I think the consumers just they're over it, and people don't want that. So I would say those are the real reasons, but just something, I guess I'm an optimist, but I also think that the cool thing with first party data is, guess what? You can do better marketing. That's what I like. It's not just, oh, bummer, I can't use third party, data. But to me, when you're actually engaging your buyer, finding out what they care about, you can actually do a better job as a marketer, which is what I get excited about. It's to me, it's more the carrot, not the stick.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Completely agree with that. And I think it's the win-win, right? And I always try to find that in, in what I do, but in
Right.
this case, it actually is like, okay, yeah, it's better for customers. Their data isn't being sold and traded by who knows who. And marketers can do a better job, which kind of leads me to the next topic I wanted to talk about. And to talk about, we define what is a first party data strategy, but let's talk about what it looks like to do it well. And often a core part of that is employing a customer data platform or a CDP.
Mhm.
So unified view of the customer seems pretty straightforward, but it's anything but for any of us who have ever tried to stitch together a million pieces of data without some kind of platform or tools to do that, particularly with how many channels most brands are interacting with their customers on and potential customers on. So what's a CDP's role here?
Yeah, I mean, I think a CDP, and it's kind of what I said earlier. It's funny, like at all the years that I've spent in Martech. I mean, I spent years at Marketo, and I think everyone always talked about it, even then, like omni-channel marketing, the ability to create these experiences. And just as you just said, sounds great. No one here is going to argue that's important. We all
Right.
get it, but it's the doing it that is. I mean, I think I have. It's taken years off my life, probably personally, but I think what's great about CDPs, I'll highlight, some things that I think are important. I think the first part is CDPs that start at data collection and doing so, real time, because I think that's where it really gets exciting. And I think, CDPs, the idea here, just for everyone, that is they help you collect all the right data, whether that's server side, client side. So you just think about all the different data sources, whether that's call center data, mobile data, website data, bringing that together and making sure that data is filtered and enriched. So it's like, we know Greg is Greg because you may have 5 different email addresses, but
Right.
making sure that all that's current and updated and again, compliant, and then being able to act on that data, which is really important. And I think this everyone knows too, but all consumers today, you don't think in channels. I don't wake up and say, wow, I'm gonna, pop on my mobile device and buy shoes. Like you might, get distracted. Maybe a meeting's not going so well and you're like, I'm just gonna browse off to the side or do other things. And I know McKinsey, they have great data on this, but most consumers are minimally on 3 channels, right? And you're going to be doing different things. And what I like is that, people expect these seamless experiences, but I think all the data shows that most companies just are not keeping up with that. And the ones that do are winning. And the idea, and this is an example I love, you might be looking at shoes online, you purchase them, and it's like, great, I'm happy I have the shoes. The joy lasts hopefully a while.
Right.
But you do not want to get targeted for a discount on those shoes after you've bought them. And to me, that's what a real-time CDP does. It's basically connects data in real time and it helps you understand, okay, here's this point of sale data. Greg bought those shoes. Now let's suppress ads to him because that transaction has already occurred. So it really, at the highest level, CDPs enable that in the moment experience and that kind of in the moment marketing we've all talked about, and it makes it a reality behind the scenes. So it's pretty exciting, and I would say even obviously outside of retail, a lot of industries need this, right? I think like
Yeah.
to me, pharmaceutical companies, healthcare companies, financial services companies, especially where data is very, very sensitive, you even have, I think, more of a high bar for your experience. Like to me, if I get some message from my healthcare provider that doesn't make sense, like that's not a good feeling. I'm
Yeah.
even going to be a little more forgiving with, say, a retail company than I would my financial services or healthcare company. So it's really important. And I think, companies that are adopting this are, like I said, they're seeing a lot of success.
Wouldn't it be great if you could ask your data anything at any time? Like, how are sales this quarter? How's the new marketing campaign performing? What does the overall health of the company look like? And actually get answers right away with charts and graphics and actionable information. You can with Domo's AI and data products platform. Domo lets you channel AI and data quickly, securely, and innovatively to deliver measurable insights wherever and whenever you need them. Anyone on your team can use Domo to easily prepare, analyze, visualize, automate, and distribute data, all amplified by AI. Domo goes beyond productivity. It's designed to transform your processes, helping you make smarter and faster decisions and drive real growth, all powered by Domo's trust, flexibility, and years of expertise in data and AI innovation. The world's best companies rely on Domo to make smarter decisions. See how Domo can help transform yours. Learn more at ai.domo.com. That's ai.domo.com.
So to build on that, another component of this is, not every organization is quite at the one-to-one personalization level, and there's a lot of audience segmentation being done. It's being done in a million different ways. Some are, let's call it, less scientific than others. Some are a lot more data driven. How does a CDP help in understanding the best way to do segmentation? Because it's still definitely a great way to reach audiences.
It is. I mean, I think like if you kind of just think about a CDP, especially real time when it's used correctly, think this is like the big takeaway message, I think. It just shrinks that time to conversion. Why? Because you're acting on real time data signals, behavioral that maybe are occurring on your website or mobile app. And then a buyer, think about this rather than you having to send follow up emails, all the things that are delaying that conversion, CDPs just shrink that. And why? Because you can create these more relevant, accurate segments based on that real time behavioral data. That's what's exciting to me. So, a simple example, one of our customers, ASU, and this is really cool. There may be students that say, "Gosh, this class isn't going well, and I may want to drop this class," and they may be on the website. And those signals they can actually act on to help say, "Hey, this person maybe needs some additional help in this class." Like
Mhm.
there's all these really powerful use cases, and to me, that's just what's so exciting. And good segmentation is not just based on looking back. It's not looking back in your rearview mirror and saying, "Oh, this person bought these 3 pairs of shoes. Gosh, they're certainly going to want another pair," right? It incorporates, wow, this person now looks like they might be in a cold destination. They might not be looking for flip flops. They might want some winter boots. And so, again, like CDPs can ingest and integrate this data real time, so that way your segments, or think about your audiences, they can be dynamically updated. So that way you can create these better experiences. And then again, what we all want is really shrinking that time to conversion.
Yeah, yeah, and the other thing you touched on was just the relevance of it, right? I mean, I don't have the stats in front of me, but people are more open to marketing that is relevant to them than things are, like the shoe example, or I got a car recently, and I do not need to see more ads for cars right now. I'm good
No,
on cars.
you're good. You don't want
For
to.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I might want more, but I'm good. I'm good. But so all of this kind of leads to the data and the analytics part, as well as being able to do things like predicting churn or propensity to buy, whether that's at the segmentation level or even the individual level. How do you look at what should a good CDP provide from that analytics and data perspective, knowing you touched a little bit on this, but
Yeah, and your churn example is probably one of the best ones that we've seen over the last few years. Like just having the data to understand, this particular key segment I care about. Wow, the behavior is changing,
yeah,
and then you can actually put those folks in another key segment, or we call them audiences that then you can act on. But I think for me, like the analytics groupings I think a lot about are, I mean, the first and foremost, let's just be honest, is just having the data. And to me, CDPs, that ability just to reduce time and effort to insight. So
yeah,
like if you have data that's going into a data warehouse and then somebody's analyzing it, it's like analysts are, it's like 80% of their time is data wrangling. So it's like that isn't great, right? Because by the time you get those insights as a marketer, you're like, well, like a lot of those opportunities might be gone. So
right,
again, going back to that real time piece. So reducing time to insight is to me the first one. The second one is analyzing that cross channel behavior and starting to identify patterns, and starting to identify, like you see this a lot in the retail space, where a lot of people, I mean, especially with the holidays right now, shop in person, and they see things, they touch them, they get a sense of if they like it, and then they buy it online. So
yeah,
how can I understand patterns like that and optimize for that?
yeah,
I think, building predictive insights, which we'll get to as well. It's like understanding the data and then using, machine learning and AI to get ahead of things, which is huge for churn, and a big area that I think a lot about. And then, yeah, I mean, I just think again, like being able to act on that data in real time so that you can kind of make adjustments when it matters. Like you said, like thinking about the car example, you've bought the car, you do not want to see some discount for that car. Like
Right,
that would
right,
not land well, right? And we all get it, or something that you're marketed to that's just downright strange. You're like, I don't
right,
know why they think I want, cat food if I don't have a cat. So
right.
I just think the ability to collect that data, have it in real time, and analyze it then so you can use it versus kind of, I think historically, it's just been a lot of it's like by the time that data is examined, it's almost too late. And that's kind of to me the holy grail.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And so you touched on AI as well, and I feel like it's a requirement that I ask at least one AI related question on my
For
show
sure.
every,
We got to
every
do it.
every episode. So you mentioned predictive. There's certainly interesting things happening with generative, and and combinations of many types of AI. Where do you see the role of AI and all of this to improve things, and to be able to use the data, maybe even protect customer data? Where do you see AI's role here?
Yeah, I mean, I think we need a whole other podcast just on AI because there's a
Yeah,
lot of areas. But I think the first thing that I think about with AI is, I think companies and teams have done an amazing job with a lot of the models, and I think the models folks have. In my prediction is that a lot of these models at some point will be somewhat commoditized. And going back to my first point, the thing that will matter the most is the data that is being fed into the models.
yeah,
And we all know the saying, it's like garbage in, garbage out. And we've seen it, right? Where the model could be amazing that the data scientist puts together. But if the data being used is poor, substandard, missing key elements, it's almost like what you get out of it's not great. And
yeah,
so in my mind, it's really thinking about how we can collect, consented, filtered, enriched data in real time that can be used for these models. And I think that again, the companies that have that, it'll be such an advantage because you'll be able to understand, hey, this audience segment, they typically based on this, these algorithms do X, and you can get ahead of it. That's exciting to me. And I think that, we've all talked about next best action for a long time. And I think a lot of that's becoming real. It's just we're in such an exciting time. But I think again, AI is a big area, but just keeping things really kind of simple. You just have to have good data coming in and making sure that I would say that to everyone right now, just get that part right and make sure it's consented because in some cases you might be using data where that's not the case and then you can't really use those results.
yeah, yeah. And that's a great segue to the last topic I wanted to talk about. I know you touched on data privacy a little bit earlier, but want to dive in a little deeper here. And much of the reason, as we had talked about already, for first party data to be such a important thing right now is in some ways due to a need for greater consumer data privacy. So as we talked about the car example, the shoe examples, things like that, customers are often feeling not only inundated with things that may not be relevant, but also brands that are asking for a lot from them, whether it's the types of questions they ask, or I feel like in general, we're kind of over surveyed as human beings in general. What would your advice be to brand? And I guess at the same time, though, most people, I wouldn't say everybody knows how MarTech works and everything like that, of course. But I think, a lot of people understand that if you give a little bit more, you're going to get more personalized recommendations. I mean, you can see that with using Netflix or, lots of things in that a lot of consumers use. But that said, we're still brands ask for a lot of information without necessarily demonstrating the value of what that information is going to give. What would your advice be to brands around just thinking around this, how to think when and how to ask for the data that they want, and what they really need about their customers?
Yeah, I mean, it's your survey comment was funny because it's like what we all do not need is another like 50-page survey. And when you're like, I'm going to be a good citizen and start it, and it's like, oh
Right,
no, there's 10 more pages.
right, right.
You don't want to do that. Yeah, I think there's two things I always think about. I think about, many of your kind of listeners have heard about value exchange, right? And it's really mapping out somebody's journey when it's almost like dating. If I hate that analogy, but it really does work. It's like when you're first going out on a date with somebody, what makes sense for you to ask, and what are they willing to give back versus
Yeah.
like, when you're married, it's like it's all fair, right? People know the family members. It's
Right,
like
right.
comment on the crazy aunt, it's okay. But you're not going to do that on the first date. And so I really like when somebody's like, hey, like I saw this for, Black Friday, Cyber Monday. It's like, if you buy this now, you will ensure, you get, premier shipping and it's going to be delivered today. Like that's cool. Like
Yeah.
I'm willing to maybe join a loyalty program for an amazing shipping experience. That's great. And so I think it's just kind of figuring out like maybe when somebody's first engaging with your brand, don't do the 40-page survey. That's not the appropriate
Right.
time. So I think that like there's a lot of companies that do this well, and I think and I know like say some luxury brands they don't want to give discounts, but maybe some brands that makes sense. But I just think it's like for whatever you're asking, the value you're giving back has to be equal. You can't ask somebody to do this huge survey and say, "Oh, great, like you get a little smiley face email." Like no one cares, right? Like
Right.
that's not what I want. So you've got to think through that. And I think, another thing for people to think about is sort of the zero party data where, yep, we're going to throw out another term because we can and it's fun. But really how you can engage somebody in the moment on your website. And I think an example I love is if people want to check this out, it's the Neutrogena website, and they have an area called quizzes, and they ask about, do you have, what's your skin condition? Do you have dry skin, oily skin? Are you worried about sun damage? Like, what are the things? And it's like it tailors your experience. It's like your point with Netflix. Like, what kind of films do you want to be seeing? And so I think when you can ask questions that help tailor the experience, that's also really great too.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's great. Well, Heidi, thanks so much for joining the show. One last question before we wrap up here. You've given a lot of great advice, insights already. What's one next best action you'd recommend for those listening that want to improve their first party data strategy? What should they start doing today?
Yeah. I mean, I think the first thing that I would do is just have a team in your company. And you could be the person that helps kick this off, that thinks about customer data and basically says, look, this is something that we need to think about and it's important. Because the one thing I will say, it's a team sport. This isn't American Idol where it's just you up there singing.
Right.
I mean, it's like you're going to need to involve different folks. And I think start with that and make sure you have legal, the right folks involved, IT, and then make sure that you have a good way of collecting that data. Even if you're not actioning on it right away, just start collecting consented data. And that's the place I would start. And there's so many people doing this and a lot of resources and folks to help, but that is where I would start.
Yeah, I love it. Well, again, I'd like to thank Heidi Bullock, CMO at Tealium, for joining the show. You can learn more about Heidi and Tealium by following the links in the show notes. Thanks again for listening to the Agile Brand, brought to you by Tech Systems. If you enjoyed the show, please take a minute to subscribe and leave us a rating so that others can find the show more easily. You can access more episodes of the show at www.gregkillstrom.com. That's GregKihlstrom.com. While you're there, check out my series of best-selling Agile Brand guides, covering a wide variety of marketing technology topics, or you can search for Greg Kihlstrom on Amazon. The Agile Brand is produced by Missing Link, a Latina-owned, strategy-driven, creatively fueled production co-op. From ideation to creation, they craft human connections through intelligent, engaging, and informative content. Until next time, stay agile.
The Agile Brand.